Welcome back to the Blue Blasterbot channel, where I mulled over making separate Issue 3 and Issue 4 videos, considering I've been teasing Issue 4 all series, but I come to find out Sonichu Issue 3 only has 2 episodes and a sub-episode. After enough mulling over, I figured, screw it, and I decided to make this into a double feature. Maybe YouTube's algorithm will quit hiding my videos, but who knows. If you like the idea of all this, please like, comment, and subscribe, as well as share this video with all of your friends. I am committed to reviewing all of Sonichu, so let's just get into this. Episode 10, Sonichu Baby. So you remember the chaotic rainbow that transformed Pikachu into Sonichu? Yeah, apparently it also threw a bunch of Sonichu eggs back in time. The rainbow is basically the Big Bang except stupider. The 5 eggs hatched into 3 Sonies and 2 Rosies. Yes, Sonichus and Rosechus are their own species. Again, this goes to show how progressive Chris is. Each one is given about 2 pages each to explain their origins. First up to bat is Wild Sonichu, who is taught survival skills by a Venusaur and a Scyther. Apparently he has the power to shoot vines out of his arms and fly with his leaf tail, kinda like Tails. Don't worry about his flying power though, he never actually uses it. It'd be kinda cool if he could use it like the Cape Feather in Super Mario World. That or just use his vines like Spider-Man, but no. Next up to bat is Bubbles Rosechew, who is raised by a Swampert. A Wailord somehow gets enough height to drop a boulder on the Swampert. Bubbles saves her ass and evolves. This one pisses me off because Swampert is my favorite Pokemon, and not only do Swamperts not work this way because boulders are light work even for a Mudkip, but the fact that they're even associated with this comic at all pisses me off. Moving right along is the only other Rosechew in the chaotic combo, Angelica Rosechew. She was raised by nuns and taught the good word of God. Unfortunately, things take a turn when Chris gives her shoes right after she evolves overnight, implying he's been stalking her this entire time, kinda like the game dude when his ex left him. Up next is Punchy Sonichu, who trains with Maipo at Nabe's Dojo Shin. That's actually what Chris called it, by the way. Maipo rips off Punchy's tail, thinking it's a weak spot. This trauma somehow causes Punchy to evolve. Knuckles-Chew here then uppercuts Maipo, and her father, Nabe, congratulates him on murdering his daughter and offers to teach him martial arts. Lastly is Magi-Chan, who is psychically trained by Mewtwo as he stayed secluded in a cave. Mewtwo never really meets Magi-Chan in person, but that doesn't stop them from marrying, but that's way later in the story. He then evolves, shits himself, and then teleports to the top of the mountain, ready for action. The issue ends with an ad for Chris Chan's MySpace account, showing he only has Sonichu for a friend. Fitting? Yes. Sad? Doubly so. By the way, who remembers MySpace? I was too young for MySpace, I will admit, but I do have a Space Hay account. If you don't know, Space Hay is the spiritual successor to MySpace from back in the day, down to having all kinds of different layouts and other things to customize your social media page. Links down below if you want to follow me there. While you're down there in the description, why not also follow me on Blue Sky? It's like Twitter without as many assholes. Alright, shameless plug out of the way, let's get into Episode 11, the chaotic combo in When Hedgehogs Meet. We are introduced to Flame the Kazooie, who guards the legendary Master Sunstone, on his remote island of, well, we aren't really given a name, it doesn't have one. Apparently this Sunstone's super important as it keeps people from growing extra appendages. Shadowchew steals the Sunstone on his hoverboard because I guess he wants to be General Grievous, and manages to piss off 4 of the 5 members of the chaotic combo along the way. Getting Bubbles wet, ramming into Wild, interrupting Knuckles-Chew's workout, and managing to yeet him right into a tree in front of Angelica. The 4 of them introduce each other, and Magi-Chan sees the commotion from atop a mountain and rushes to the others. Meanwhile, Sonichu shows up and knocks Shadowchew's board out from underneath him. The 6 of them huddle and make a quick plan. Sonichu shows just how progressive he is, and they execute the plan of hit him and don't get hit. The chaotic combo gang up on Shadowchew, beating him into a pulp before throwing him into a hitherto unknown pinball table, paralyzing him. The issue then ends with an ad for a mail-order girlfriend, advertising a sex trade in a superhero comic meant to be read by children. Also,
what do you mean by that?
In all seriousness, as much as it pains me to say it, Chris had some potential going with this episode. In the hands of a better writer, we would have started with this episode and learned more about the world, how important the Sunstone was, what it could do, maybe even sprinkle in some more interesting villains, maybe reveal the Sunstone was sealing an ancient evil inside of it, literally anything. But no, the Sunstone and Kazooie disappear from the story entirely after this. But let's get into issue 4, where Chris reprints all the sub-episodes and reminds us who the real main character of the story is.
Hi, excuse me. 2 seconds here. I'm the one in the car, remember? This story's about me, not him. Okay, you got it? All right, we're gonna move ahead. Sorry to slow you down.
A little context for those unaware. The Sonichu sub-episodes are power fantasies, retelling events of Chris's misadventures as if he were victorious in events he was not in real life. In essence, Chris is just saying, "You're lucky my superpowers haven't kicked in yet, because if they did, you'd be fucked!" You know, kind of like Chris pretending that they're Jesus. Alright, let's get into this. Sub-episode 1, Christian Chandler and the Jerk-Op Tastropi. 1 year and 7 months into Chris Chan's love quest, where he claims to want a partner to love and trust, when in reality he just wants a mommy he can have sex with, not unlike what he did to his mother in 2021. Yes, I will be reaching for the low-hanging fruit. While listening to music on his Nintendo DS, a jerk-op shows up, accusing Chris of sexual solicitation. Chris, outraged that he was caught, defends his dishonor by assaulting law enforcement. He transforms into Chris Chan Sonichu, and the jerk-op gets a ticking clock panel to summon metal armor. The two fight, with Chris breaking the cop's armor. Chris offers mercy as if he wasn't under arrest. The cop pulls a gun on Chris, who uses a barrier to deflect the bullet. Chris then does Kamehameha motions, which piss on the cop and curse him with plot holes. By the way, that's something Chris actually used to do in real life. The cop gets up, slips on a banana peel that wasn't there before, breaks his glasses as his wife divorces him over his smoking habit, even though he never smoked. And because of the corrupt Cookville courts, she gets custody of everything he owns. The cop cries, "My soul hurts," as Chris reiterates his villainy by saying, "This wouldn't have happened if you just let me be a creep towards women. Decency, the law, and their comfort be damned. Now you know not to do your job," as the jerk-op cries. Hey, Chris can tweet all day about how he's the hero of the story, but this sub-episode undermines all of that. Sub-episode 2, The Rise and Fall of My Heart. About a month after ruining an innocent man's life, Chris finds it way harder to find a partner. I mean, I can't imagine why. Some chick named Hannah somehow finds his sign and asks if he wants to get coffee later. Chris is ecstatic and asks Rosechew to spread the word, because Chris's love life is of inherent importance to the Rosechews. Chris spends most of the date talking about himself, ends the date with what he calls a double-take flirt, and calls his family. Alright, so far so good. While Chris figures out his next move thanks to a dating sim on his DS, Rosechew's off spreading the word. While doing so, she eavesdrops on Hannah, who reveals to her friends that she's only pretending to like him as a prank for her boss. Let's just disregard the fact that no employer would ever instruct their employees to prank randos at the mall, and move on to the fact that Rosechew, having never learned the phrase "snitches get stitches," snitches on Hannah and tells Chris that Hannah's just pranking him. If anybody can tell me in the comments how this is a good prank, that'd be greatly appreciated, thank you. Anyway, Chris confronts Hannah, and rather than keeping the prank going and lying to Chris, Hannah admits to all of it, throwing her friends under the bus, and Chris responds by screaming, "Yeah!" like Darth Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith, which causes him to get kicked out of the mall. Chris then goes home and writes a passive-aggressive email trying to shame Hannah for pranking him. Allow me to summarize. "Yeah, I may be a sociopath who ruins people's lives for doing their job, creeps on women, and has violent revenge fantasies about people who probably forgot about me, but you're mean, and that's worse." I doubt Hannah was actually pranking Chris. I believe Hannah saw Chris's sign, decided to try dating him out of morbid curiosity, regretted it, and told Chris that she didn't want a second date. Unless I'm wrong, but given it's Chris, it could be either or. Sub-episode 3, Witch Confront. Mary Lee Walsh is stirring some brew. Chris Chan Sonichu breaks into her home and does Sailor Moon poses at her. The two scrap for a bit, Chris shows just how much of a feminist he is, and Walsh kicks Chris in the balls in response. She then makes the stunning realization that Chris Chan Sonichu is just Chris Chan's persona. Then Sonichu shows up because he stayed behind as backup, I guess, and uses thunder, while Chris casts yet another Curse Ye Hameha. This manages to kill Mary Lee Walsh again because how dare anyone tell Chris to stop putting up embarrassing attraction signs? Sub-episode 4, Mick Attack. Chris monologues his misandry while enjoying some chicken McNuggets, blaming all men everywhere for taking pretty girls for themselves, leaving Chris with none. Again, this just goes to show how progressive Chris is. I think there's something to be said about how Chris is somehow both a misogynist and a misandrist simultaneously, but I'm not sure what that is. But that's irrelevant right now, because B Manajerk and his sidekick, Married Senor Comic, pull up and tell Chris to get the hell out because it's apparently illegal to have a mate, as he puts it. The fight gets interrupted by one Darkbind Sonichu, which is basically a Link and Darkwing Duck Sonichu. Chris transforms into his fursona, and the Hedgehogs fight the Jerkops. Chris fights B Manajerk, and Darkbinds fight Senor Comic.
Okay, stop. No. If you want anyone to take your game seriously, you cannot open with a Monty Python reference.
Also the fucking numbering. Meanwhile, Chris uppercuts the other Manajerk, then Darkbind fucks off for the rest of the story, as Chris then lectures the Manajerks on his incel rage before the WM Manajerk shows up. As for you two Manajerks, how dare you stop me from being a creep towards women while they're shopping? Don't you know how lonely and sexually frustrated I am? Just let me be a creeper in peace. Anyone else's safety and comfort be damned. Don't talk that way to my employees, you motherfucker. What? Who goes there? Show yourself! Sup, bitch? The episode then ends with a recycled MySpace ad and a recycled ass body spray ad. If you made it this far, comment who your favorite member of the Chaotic Combo is. Sub-episode 5, Mick Attack Part 2. The WM Manajerk then yeets Chris into a soda fountain. Chris decides to bathe right there and then and figures 3 seconds is long enough. On one hand, that may be 3 seconds longer than any Discord mod, but on the other, that's not even enough to count as a whore's bath. Anyway, Chris charges into the Manajerk again, forgetting he has a command grab. Chris then learns the magic wand he has, made out of pixel blocks, is now real and capable of summoning his twin sister, Crystal Weston Chandler. Together, the two fight the Manajerk, drill into him, and decapitate him, revealing he was just a Futurama-style head in a jar. The two of them didn't know this, by the way, revealing that their true goal really was to murder this man. Again, Chris can cope all he wants. He knows he's the villain of the story at the end of the day. Crystal scolds the head in a jar for not letting Chris solicit sex at Walmart. The two then punt the head like a football back to Mary Lee Walsh. Sub-episode 6, Christian Chandler's Backyard Safari. Chris decides to do a nature documentary, further dehumanizing those he deems unworthy by depicting law enforcement the way he would an animal on Animal Planet or Discovery Channel. He talks about the time he got chased out of the mall he was banned from like an animal attack, one he managed to escape with the help of his so-called sister, distracting the Jerkops like a Looney Tunes short, because according to Chris, the Jerkops have less game than him, ignoring the fact that the first Jerkop we saw was married until Chris cursed him like the villain he is. Chris then proves his misandry once again, uses psychic powers to disarm the Jerkops and arrange them like bowling pins, and use the Chief as a bowling ball, managing to get 301 points in a single frame, which goes to show not only Chris's narcissism, but also the fact Chris has no idea how bowling works, as well as Chris reveling in the pain he inflicts on others, just like a true sociopath. The episode then concludes with a page on the Hypno Gun, which apparently describes how Jerkops spread. Allegedly, this gun only works on slow-minded individuals, which totally doesn't describe someone who runs over their own PS3, shoves Crayola model magic up their ass, drinks their own baby batter mixed with orange Fanta, and somehow believes their power fantasy setting is real, exists in another dimension, and is about to merge with the real world at any second. After that, we are introduced to Scott Palazzo for the first and last time. Unlike other villains, he actually has a reason for his villainy, because his mother killed her husband and herself, but we never really get to see him again, because complex villains may make the stupid reader think Chris may be in the wrong for disturbing the peace in every establishment he walks into, and reveling in the torment he inflicts upon others. Sub-episode 7, Off Target. We open with a flashback, which is just a reuse of the 5th classic Sonichu strip. Mary Lee Walsh then vows revenge before we cut to Walsh's newest villain, Marcus Bagay. or I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm just going to call him Marcus from here on out. Cut to Chris loitering at Target. 2 employees tell him he's banned from there as well for his reputation, stalking women, and abusing the soda fountain's free refill policy while doodling his shitty comics. Chris ignores them before using wind powers to just nonchalantly blow them away, the same way you'd wave away a fly. We then see the phallic straw, then Marcus then threatens Chris, along with a platoon of jerk-ops. Chris transforms and the two clash swords for a bit before Marcus gets his own transformer, who manages to heroically beat the shit out of Chris. The sub-episode ends with Marcus dropping our villain about 10 feet. Sub-episode 8, Off Target Part 2. Unfortunately, Chris's fall is broken by Crystal's psychic power, before the jerk-ops hog-tie him, dogpile him, and give him carpet burn. Serves him right. Chris is then thrown into a jet and brought to Piedmont, Virginia Community College. Crystal then transforms into her Rose-Chew form and tracks them down, as Chris is held over a boiling cauldron. Crystal saves her evil brother again, and the two finish off Mary Lee Walsh again, somehow restoring Chris's college to what it was before. A shithole. And there we go, that's all the sub-episodes, and thank the Lord, because I wasn't sure how much more I could take. And yeah, after this, there are no more sub-episodes because Barb told Chris to stop making them, well, for obvious reasons, as they quite literally depicted actual events from Chris's real life dramatized so that Chris was victorious. I think the most baffling part in this entire issue is that Chris intended for people to buy this, read it, want more, and even more bafflingly, root for Chris. Now, I wouldn't normally be against Chris finding love. After all, it's only human. But the way Chris goes about it, the fact Chris takes no accountability whatsoever and makes no effort to better himself, not to mention the fact he dehumanizes, torments, and even ruins the life of anyone who dares hold him accountable for his actions, makes me root against him. Make no mistake, Chris is the villain and the Sonichus are his minions. But that's enough of me yapping. Tell me what y'all think. I'll see y'all later with another video. God bless, Godspeed, and stay frosty out there.